Welcome to Breathe, a weekly audio podcast presented by Breath of Life. And now, here's the host, Pastor Snell, and co-host David Person.
Welcome to Breathe. I'm David Person, the co-host of this podcast that is presented by the Breath of Life television ministry. And our host is Speaker Director of Breath of Life. He's also the senior pastor of the Oakwood University Church. And some have said looks remarkably like Isaac Hayes. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Have you heard that? I've heard that. I just had that conversation with somebody recently.
Listen, I have some shades.
Yeah. Especially when the shades are on.
Pull them out. Anybody over probably 40, anybody over 40, they be like, man, you look just like Isaac Hayes.
What I'm waiting for, Pastor Nugent, what I'm waiting for is the Sabbath that Pastor Snell comes out with the shades on and we hear the
Yeah. Hey, listen, we're going to set that up.
The church will fall out. So it's not Isaac Hayes, he's not Shaft, he's Pastor Snell.
That's correct.
Shut your mouth. No, that's Pastor Snell.
That's good.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, listen, I'm excited to be here with the Breathe family in the studio. We're talking about some stuff this month that is so helpful, so transformative, and I believe that we're going to peak even at a higher level with some of the things we're going to talk about today.
And I want to say an extra special amen to that, because we are, as the pastor was suggesting, we are in our testimony month.
That's right.
And these testimonies are getting, they're getting to be, they've been extremely enlightening and inspiring. And I know this episode is going to be no less that, with my schoolmate, longtime friend, entrepreneur.
That's right.
Educational specialist at the North Alabama Center for Educational Excellence, CEO of her own real estate company, April Fortune.
Hello, everybody.
April, good to see you.
Hey.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It really is.
Hey, and listen, can I add to this? I had
Yes.
the privilege of being Sister Fortune's pastor for about 11 years. You know, and there are times where people talk about who their favorite pastors are of all time. I need you to know Sister Fortune is one of my favorite members of all time.
Come on.
Wow.
And
Nice.
she is a gospel trophy. Like, she embodies what happens when you're in a living relationship with God. And I think part of that will come out as she shares today.
Beautiful.
Praise God.
Well, that's nice. That's nice.
That is
Good to hear
awesome.
from your pastor.
Yeah.
Hey, come on. That's good.
Thank you, Pastor.
That's right. So, April,
Yes.
we've talked a little bit about you being an entrepreneur and you being an educator. Also, I should mention, something you're very proud of is that you have 9 grandchildren.
9?
Grandmother.
No
way. She doesn't look like she has
way.
one grandchild. let alone
God for that, too.
Wow.
Yeah, 9 grandchildren. So this is Testimony Month, April. Let's start our testimony first with your business and your evolution in business, because I know that is something, I've watched it from afar. I've seen what's happened with you and in the realty space. Give that testimony first.
Okay, awesome. So actually becoming a realtor was something I wanted to do since my children were young. My youngest daughter was like 5. And I got my license, let them lapse. Things kept going back and forth. And part of my next testimony will connect with that. But once my children were all graduated from high school and graduated from college, and they were like, okay, Mommy, it's time for you to do you. Mm-hmm. And so they actually supported me financially, emotionally, they gave me all the support that I needed to go ahead and get my license. And I started, I think it was back in 2017.
Oh, wow.
That I got my license. And so now I just got my own LLC a year ago. So I've had my own business now for a year. And I am now working on my broker's license. So I'm excited about that as well. Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And just for
Beautiful.
folks who may not know, what's the difference between being an agent and a broker?
Well, it just depends. For me right now, it's just a title. It's almost like having a master's, but just, not working on that in that capacity. But having a broker's license will enable me to be able to open up my own office.
Right.
So I'll be able to have Fortune Realty in its own building. I can have my own agents under me. I can, and start my own
That's awesome.
business. And that's
awesome.
eventually where I plan to go.
Got you. Very good.
Hey, that's got a ring to it. Fortune Realty.
Fortune. I'm telling you, Fortune.
You want me to give you my tagline?
Ah, come on, we want to hear it.
The only
What is
fortune you need for your real estate dreams.
Ooh.
Nice.
Come on
nice.
now.
She's already branding. I
Heard
like
it here
that.
first.
Only fortune.
right.
Oh,
Yes.
That's good. That's good.
Already branding. I love it. All right. So we've heard your business testimony.
Yeah.
Let's now talk about your personal testimony because you've got a very specific one.
Yes.
Share it.
Okay. So a lot of people don't know that I now call myself a thriver of domestic violence.
Thriver.
Yes.
I like that.
So I was married for 22 years, and in my 22-year marriage, I suffered domestic violence, physical, sexual, emotional violence. So, of course, then my children grew up in that atmosphere as well, and they were exposed to a lot. So, my journey is, I wouldn't say unique. I think anybody that deals with domestic violence probably goes through a lot of the same things. Yeah. I think where I'm at now is a whole lot different from where I was, and I think that where I'm at now is unique to a lot of people. And that's why I was excited when I got this invitation because I've not been public with my story, but I wanted to go public with my story.
Okay.
Not to hurt anybody, not to put anybody down, because it's not about the perpetrator. It's about me and my growth and how my story can help other women and men who also go through it.
Pastor Snell, before you jump in, I want to ask a question about how this happens. We've known each other for almost 40 years, I think. I wonder how this happens in the church, because we've known each other not just as schoolmates, but as church members.
Right.
How this happens in the church without, I guess I don't know how else to phrase it, without it being a known thing, so that you're basically, you're in a place where there's supposed to be healing, right? And yet you're going through something that is incredibly traumatic and even dangerous, really.
Yeah.
And, many of us are oblivious to this because I have to confess to you, I didn't know this until today.
Wow. Okay.
So how do you feel as someone who is going through this in an environment where there's supposed to be safety and healing, but you're not experiencing it in your life?
That's a good question. You learn to mask and to cover. So there were times when on my way to church, I was being talked about, I was being fussed at. I even got hit a couple of times on my way to church, in the car on my way to church. But once we walked through the church door, we were like the happy family. And that's what we had to portray, because otherwise we went back home and got more. So you had to put on this facade. I remember, and I'm jumping a little bit, but I remember at one point he got rebaptized. And the church was up clapping and amen, amen. And a friend of mine looked at me and she said, "Hey, but why are you not smiling?" But I knew it was all just a facade, that, we go back home and we're still dealing with what we were dealing with at home.
Wow.
So, yeah, you put on a mask. You learn how to hide, and you learn how to, once you step out the door into the public, you learn how to cover it up and pretend like everything's okay.
Pastor?
So, Sis Fortune, as I'm listening to you, I've heard people talk about the layers of brokenness that domestic violence causes. I think sometimes we look at the physical harm and danger. But what were the emotional scars look like, and how has the process of healing from those been? I know I'm certain it's still an ongoing work in many ways. But, can you contrast the outward brokenness with the inward brokenness it causes?
Yeah. So, and I'm glad you asked that, because the physical scars, they heal. You can put medication on them. You can put a Band-Aid on them. You can put a cast on it, and the bones will heal. But the emotional scars, they're so hidden and they're so deep.
Wow.
That there is nothing really to heal it except for Christ.
Wow.
Except for Christ, there's no healing for it. I don't know, because I'm still living, but I believe that it's going to be a lifelong journey. There are days when I wake up and I think I have to be intentional about making it a good day for myself.
Wow.
And most days now I'm good, because I've gone through a journey and I've gotten to a point where I'm okay. Like, I can sit here and talk about it and not cry and not tear up. But there are days when I wake up and the minute my eyes open, I feel this darkness coming over me. And I have to pray and say, okay, Lord, we're not doing this today. Me and you, we got this. Me and God have got this, and we're not allowing the devil to have his way. And I sometimes have to spend extra time in prayer, extra time in devotion on those mornings. But those emotional scars, I don't even know if they ever heal, but it does get easier and it does get better. I don't know if they ever heal. I haven't reached the point where they've completely healed.
So I wanted to ask you this, Sis Fortune. If there is a younger woman or a younger man, and they are in the early throes of recognizing aggression, destructive behavior, emotionally threatening behavior, physically, what would you counsel them to do? Like, what are the steps they should take to seek help? Because I can imagine it's a very confusing time, and there are promises that this will never happen again. I love you. This will not become a pattern. What would you say to that person that's recognizing aggression and it's kind of early on?
I would say seek help. That's the first thing that I can advise anybody to do. I can't tell somebody to leave. I can't tell anybody, but you can seek help. Seek somebody, whether it's a confidant, that somebody you know, or whether you get professional help, but you need to find somebody that you can talk to about what you're going through. Once you start talking about it and you start clearing your head, then you start thinking more clearly, then you can make those other decisions as to whether you need to leave, whether y'all need to go to counseling, whatever it is that you feel that you need to do. But you can't make those decisions without a clear head, and the only way to get a clear head is to talk about it. Talk about it with somebody and it has to be somebody who, it needs to be, I'll say, somebody who doesn't have a bias, because you'd be surprised at how many people have a bias about women who are in abusive relationships or men who are in abusive relationships. Wow. It needs to be somebody who doesn't have a bias, who has an open mind and is there because they care about you, or again, because that's their profession and that's what they deal with.
Keeping secrets kills us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping secrets kills us.
And can I just say on that note, yes, and it does kill us. Keeping secrets kills us because you end up dying to yourself. So you don't even know who you are anymore. You lose yourself. You really do. And I am 62 years old, and I'm still on the process of trying to figure out who April Fortune really is. Wow. What is it that April really believes? My spiritual journey has been fantastic. But even in my personal life, in my professional life, I'm still trying to learn, who am I? And I'm still learning spiritually. What do I believe? All of that has been suppressed for so long until you don't know yourself.
Wow. I have interviewed, I don't know how many women in particular through the years who are survivors of physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. How did you ever feel that your life was in danger?
I did, yes.
How did you get through that moment? How did you survive that moment?
Ooh, I would say with much prayer, probably with a little prayer, because during that, there was a phase when prayer, I wasn't even praying because it's like, Lord, I don't know. It wasn't working. It didn't seem to be working for me, And so but I guess I would say pray. There were nights when I would go to sleep and I would just be like, Lord, help me be able to wake up in the morning. I have 3 young children, I have 3 daughters. That was, another thing for me because I was raising daughters, and this is what they were being exposed to. And so then you make the decision, do I leave? Do I stay? What's going to be best for us? How do I raise them if I leave? What do I do? How am I going to have an income? It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
And how did you resolve it ultimately?
To be honest, I had made up my mind that I was going to leave. And my daughters and I went to church one Sabbath. And when we came, the Friday night before that, that Friday night, he sat us all down and he told our children that he was filing for a divorce. And believe it or not, they clapped their hands and said, yay. Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
The next morning, we got up and the girls and I went to church. And when we came back, he had moved out. And
wow.
And even to this day, I feel like it might have been just a tactic for me because we were at a point where I had told him I wasn't going to do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. But I had not made any physical plans on what I was going to do. And I think that it might have been because about a week later, then he calls me and he says, I want to come back home. And I told him, no, that was it for me. It was like he made the move that I wasn't ready to make, that I was still scared to make. And once he left, I refused to let him come back.
Again.
And we've been moving forward ever since, my children and I.
What a powerful testimony of survival from our guest today, April Fortune. That wraps up this episode of Breathe. We're going to come back, though, next time with part 2 of our conversation with Miss Fortune. And we'll continue to learn more about her journey and how she survived this traumatic circumstance in her life. I'm David Person. On behalf of Pastor Snell and Pastor Kirk Nugent, God bless you. Don't forget, even in the most challenging times, including situations and circumstances that are like what our friend April Fortune described, you can survive them. God can guide you through. Just stop for a moment, pray, and breathe.
Breathe is produced by David Person for Breath of Life. Christian Lawson and Damian Malone provide production assistance. The opening theme was produced by David Person and James Bowman. James Bowman and Kelvin Wooten produced the closing theme. Special thanks to our broadcast partner, WJOU-FM Oakwood University Radio. Episodes of Breathe can be found on your favorite podcasting platforms. Please like them and share. Until next time, when life gets difficult, don't forget to breathe.